In this video, you're going to learn about what the difference between a fixed bid project is and hourly rate billing, also known as time and materials. Stick around. Hey everybody, my name is Don Felker, and in this show I teach you how to start, survive, and thrive in the world of consulting so that you can live a more autonomous life and a financially free life. Today we're going to talk about what the difference between a fixed bid project is and an hourly based project, also known as time and materials based project is. A fixed bid project is a project in which the time, the scope, and everything is fixed within budget and usually has a deadline associated with it. Now, let's go ahead and use the example of a software developer. Very often, a software developer will need to develop an application, and this application perhaps needs to communicate with some APIs and integrate with something else. When you perform a fixed bid type of contract, the client will give you all of the specs, the details, perhaps even mock-ups, and all of the requirements up front so that they can say, here's the project that I need. And then at that point in time, that should have everything that you need in it for you to provide a bid on how much you think it's going to cost. So when they give you the spec, you can review the spec and say, hey, I think this is going to cost X, Y, and Z amount. Now that could be $500 if it's a small project. That could be $1,000, could be $10,000, could be $100,000 or more. It depends on the size of the project. And what I have found is it's very challenging when you're an independent consultant to estimate fixed bid projects the larger they get. What do I mean by that? Let's assume that you have a simple project where they want you to add a button onto the screen and they need to color it blue. That's pretty simple. You're pretty confident that you can do that in 10 minutes, and you might quote the client whatever that rate is you want to do for 10 minutes or an hour, whatever. So it's really easy to estimate something of that scale. But if you start adding more complexity, I would like to have these buttons on the bottom, but when it's nighttime, the buttons need to be on the top and they need to be a different theme color, and the theme color needs to change based upon the user's current time zone. And after that time zone, it also must adjust when the time zone changes. So we need to have multiple themes involved. Furthermore, we need to be able to override that setting. And as you can see, the complexity just grows and grows and grows. And the more things that you have inside of a fixed bid project, the more complicated it gets. Basically means that you need to be really good at estimating your time. You need to have a good handle on how long something's going to take you to develop. If it's just a screen, if you're just developing the client application, how long does it take you to develop a screen on average? And then perhaps weight that across all of the screens you have out there. Ultimately, what you're going to be giving the client is, to complete this project, I think it's going to cost this amount of money. And that kind of comes down to it. If the client agrees to take you on and to utilize you for their project, well, at that point in time, you're now going to be able to complete this project for that amount. Now, there is a benefit to fixed bid projects. If you bid them correctly, you can actually make a decent amount of money, because if you know that you're perhaps an expert in the field in which you are bidding on the project, and you have perhaps a library of work you can reference and utilize to help get the project done, you can bill at a rate that provides the value that the client wants, and you can actually make a lot of money because it might not take you that much time to get the project done. But that does provide the value to the client, and that's what they're looking for. However, fixed bid projects can also be a humongous time sink and a trap, especially in software, because there's an old saying in software that is, software's never finished, it's just abandoned. Meaning that there's always things to change in software. There's always more features, there's always new things to improve, there's ways to refactor, we need to add tests, we need to add all different types of stuff to the application. So there's always things to do, which means the scope of the project can grow exponentially. The problem with most fixed bid projects in the software world is that you're going to receive a spec, and then as soon as you start on the spec, the client realizes, hey, I forgot something. I need you to add this extra screen over here. It won't take that long. It's just the about screen, and it just has the legal classification. Can you just go ahead and add that on there for me? They'll try to slip that in there a lot of the times. However, that takes time. That takes planning, that takes organization, that takes time to bill. So what you have to do in a fixed bid project is you have to start managing a change control process. So anytime a change comes in, and this needs to be in your contract, if a change comes in for that fixed bid project, it has to be estimated, and then it has to be approved from the client, and then that's added on to the additional bid. So if the bid was originally, let's say, $10,000, and they want to add one screen, and that screen's going to cost, you estimate it's going to cost $500. Well, now it's $10,000 plus $500. So the new total bid is $10,500. Now, as the client continually makes changes, if it varies from the spec and it's not in the contract that they have a variance to do so, you're going to have to continually implement these change orders to make sure that you're actually getting paid for your time. Otherwise, what will happen, and this has happened to me on many occurrences, is that the fixed bid project will just keep growing and growing and growing in scope, and eventually you're working more than the value of the bid that you provided. So if the project you had bid for $10,000, now all of a sudden you've worked an extra 20, 30 hours and you've kind of blown through that budget, you're actually losing money on the project. So you have to be very careful in managing a fixed bid project. And unfortunately, when the client comes to you with a lot of changes, and if you push back, which you should be doing with a proper change control procedure, sometimes the clients will feel that you're nickel and diming them because they just want a small change and they feel like it's nothing big. However, that needs to be addressed early on in the relationship so that they know every change does require some additional work. Now, even if it's just deleting a screen, that needs to be notated. You may have already developed it and they say, hey, we just need to go ahead and delete that screen. That's a change because now I have to remove it. There's places in the code that I need to reference that reference that screen. I need to make sure that those tests pass. There's work involved. So you need to make sure that those things are included, and that is a change order. So you need to implement that. So again, fixed bid, you're going to bid on how much the project is, and it's going to be delivered at a specific time for a specific amount of money. And the details and specs need to be fleshed out beforehand. It can be very challenging, but you have to make sure that you're managing the change control process. Now, if we reverse this against an hourly based project, which is also known as time and materials, is, well, here's the project that a client would like you to complete. Could be building an application. At that point in time, what you have to look at is, well, I think it's going to cost me, and you can give them an estimate, which I would recommend you doing, and you give them an estimate probably in a range. This is going to take me anywhere from, 120 to 400 hours, whatever that range is. They know your hourly rate. They know that they're going to need certain types of materials to do this. Maybe you need a specific phone or specific tablet to test this device on because maybe it's a retail store and they want to have it running in their store and you want to have that same equipment. So perhaps they need to pay for that tablet for you. That would be the materials portion. The time would be the time that you're working on the actual project. And with an hourly project, sometimes the client can feel like maybe they're being taken advantage of because you're just taking longer to get the application done. However, if you're managing it properly and you're communicating with your client, you can let them know, hey, we're kind of going really off in the weeds over here, and that's not the value proposition of this application. Let's focus on the core components of this, and then let's start bolting on these other things to see if those things actually add value to your clients. And you just want to communicate with your client, really. But overall, a time and materials, also known as hourly rate billing, is just you're billing for your time that you're working. A lot of times, a lot of clients are just going to prefer this method because they kind of have a roundabout idea of what they want, and they want to kind of develop it. And this is very common in startups. Startups will want a particular set of features. You'll get those features done. You'll ship them immediately. They want you to work on a couple new features, and you're working on those. And while those are being worked on, the analytics are being gathered on the features that you've already built. Then at that time, the analysis can take place internally in the teams and at your startup, and they'll say, hey, looks like that feature we built a month or two ago or you helped us with is really doing well. We need to add some more stuff to it. There's some more work. Or B, hey, that feature really didn't work out the way we thought it was. We're going to scrap that one and have you work on something else. Or, hey, the project's just kind of done. We didn't think it worked out the way it did. So those are the two main differences. You have fixed bid. You can be fixed in scope and fixed in the amount of money that you're bidding for it. So it's going to say, hey, it's going to take me about 2 weeks. I'll be done with it in 2 weeks, and it's going to cost $1,000. Whatever the rate is, it's up to you to determine per project, per industry of what you're doing, versus hourly, which is just, hey, you're going to work on an hourly basis for the work that you're completing, also known as time and materials. So if you have any additional materials, you'll bill for those as well. So those are the two main types of projects you're going to run into when you first start out into consulting, from especially a software, maybe design, perhaps copywriting, and even some project management style type of projects that you're going to work with. Which one works for you? There's benefits to both. I personally prefer a lot of hourly projects simply because they can continue on for a long period of time. Many fixed bid projects are kind of one and done, meaning that the project will have a start date and an end date. So it's very kind of modular, like here's a chunk of work I'm doing and I'm off to the next project. If that's what you like to do, definitely stick with that. If you're looking for more of a long-term consistency thing, I've found the hourly has kind of provided more of that overall, and that's kind of the direction I lean to. What you choose is up to you. I hope that you really enjoyed this video. If this is something you've enjoyed seeing, please hit the like button and comment below if you have a question, and subscribe to the channel, as I'll be talking about everything regarding independent consulting, from software to over to design and so forth. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. See you then.